Retired U.S. Army General Gregg Martin, today's guest, has become an advocate for mental health awareness since he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He's written a book, Bipolar General, to help others thrive as he has after a mental health diagnosis. He'll share insights about his book and his superpower. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show.
General Gregg, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a thrill to reconnect with you.
Hey, thanks, Devin. It's awesome to be on. It's a real honor, and thank you for doing this.
Well, we had the opportunity to connect at the beginning of the year or end of last year, and we had such an important conversation. It's exciting to have you back now to talk a little bit more about your book that is just now being released as we anticipate publishing this conversation coincident with your book launch. So congratulations on that. We're excited to talk more about that book.
Well, thank you very much. It was a great project to think about it and write it, and it really helped me a lot in my own recovery. It was a very cathartic experience. Really therapeutic.
We had a great conversation, and you shared in depth your story. And I want to encourage people to go back and listen to our earlier podcast. And in the show notes, I'll certainly share how you can do that. But for those watching on television, you can visit Superpowers #4good.com and just search for Gregg with 2 G's at the end, Martin, and you'll find this current episode, plus you'll find the old episode where Gregg shares his story in detail. But Gregg, in the 30 to 60 second version of your career in the military and the health crisis that brought your military career to an end, why don't you share that for us?
So I came in the Army through West Point, and then I served for 36 years on active duty. Loved the Army, loved leading soldiers, the excitement, the challenge, the mission, and everything was going great. But what I didn't realize is that I had a bipolar brain that gave me a natural advantage, because this bipolar brain flooded my brain circuitry with excess powerful chemicals, most notably dopamine. And it gave me an edge, an advantage. It lifted me up. It helped me for all those decades until it went too far, and then it hurt me. I went into full-blown mania in which I was completely out of control, over the top. And then I crashed into terrible, hopeless depression and terrifying psychosis. That led to me being forced to retire, removed from my command, hospitalized, 2 years in living through bipolar hell, and then ultimately launching a recovery and a new life. And that's basically the main elements of the book as well.
Well, it is a powerful story, and I love that you have found such a successful, compelling retirement activity, helping people in a direct, actionable way with your book and the discussions you have. You travel around, you speak to people, you write regularly for Psychology Today, and you really just kind of made it your mission and purpose to help other people, many of whom, all of us, struggle either with our own mental health or someone very close to us does. And some of us are in the world of both. And so your work is incredibly important. Let's talk a little bit about your book. Give us an overview of your book.
Well, the book can be described at once as shocking, inspirational, terrifying, and educational. It traces my life of service and success as an Army officer into my bipolar crisis after the Iraq War, the onset during Iraq, and then for the next 12, 13 years. Then from this crisis, it covers my grueling recovery back to health, and then finally the construction of a new life of meaning and purpose and happiness. So that is the main pieces of the book. And there's lots of detail and rich explanation and lessons learned and ways people can learn from this. So it's good for people who are, not just military and veterans, but mental health professionals, people with mental health challenges, as well as their families, the general population, because virtually 100% of the global population is somehow either afflicted or affected by mental illness. So it's really a valuable book for everybody that could, help alleviate the stigma, help promote healing, and help save lives.
Yeah, it no question, it can do all of those things. And there's no question that for some of us with mental illness, that lives hang in the balance. And so this is really important life-saving work that you're doing. I think in your book, you include your 5 Ps. We talked a little bit about the 5 Ps in our last conversation. As I recall, the 5 Ps are people, place, purpose, perseverance, and presence. Ps are tough on a podcast, ironically, but they're great words, As you think about these, I think there's some evidence that purpose is especially important in your process that you talk about in this healing process, but it's also important to our audience. I wonder if you just talk a little bit about the role that purpose plays for you and in the book.
Yes, purpose is absolutely critical for having a happy, healthy, successful life. As an Army officer, the first thing you ask when you go into an organization is, what's the mission? You have to have a mission, something to focus on, to animate our lives, to focus energy, etc. So coming up, once I began my road to recovery 7 years ago and moved to Florida, my big question was, what is my mission? What is my purpose? And I played around with that for a couple of years and talked to different mentors and read a lot of literature on this subject and looked to spiritual materials as well. And then finally, after a couple of years, it came to me that my mission was staring me right in the face, and it was contained inside my brain, which was sharing my bipolar story to help stop the stigma, promote healing, and save lives. I mean, that is a mission that is important. It's larger than myself. It serves others. It's something that I have, tremendous lived experience and knowledge of because, I've undergone bipolar crisis. I've pulled through the worst of it. And now I'm managing this chronic disease so that I can live a happy, healthy, successful, purposeful life. So it came to me and I said, that's it. That is my purpose. And I said, first thing I'm going to do is start telling the story. So, I sat down and took about a year to write the manuscript, which became the book. I started doing podcasts, interviews, talks, and I started small with, Rotary clubs, church groups, church retreats, little organizations. And now it's to the point where I'm talking with Fortune 500 companies, the entire Department of the Navy, very prestigious medical associations, et cetera. But that is my purpose. It's what I just described, and it's really giving me drive and motivation and inspiration for living my own life and working with others.
How would you coach someone who's been through something like you have to find their purpose. Their purpose isn't yours. How do they find their own?
I would tell people, in fact, I've had a number of people ask me about this. First is do some deep reflection on who you are, what happened to you, what your experiences were, and what you think about them and feel about them, and write these feelings down. And then, I would encourage people to say, how can I use my experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to contribute to society, to help other people, to help them better deal with problems and challenges they may be having. And then I would say, okay, here are some ways I can do it. What am I passionate about? What really turns me on and makes me happy? What activities? And then what am I good at? So that's kind of the sequence that I followed. And, helping other people has always been a key tenet of my life, especially as an Army officer. I love communicating, I love speaking, and I've grown to really enjoy writing. But the speaking part comes very naturally, and it seems to work well. People seem to respond to, my messages and my stories. So I kind of focused in on that. And there's another piece to the speaking, which I call conferring. And, like just getting together with a group of people on Zoom or in person and just talking about issues, problems, how to solve them, what we can do to make things better. So that's what I really have done myself. And it's what I coach other people, a process, a way to think about developing their own purpose.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Greg, we're going to just pause for a minute for the benefit of our television audience. We're going to run a little commercial, and then we're going to come back and talk about your superpower. Don't miss the opportunity to hear from crowdfunding luminary Sherwood Neese of Crowdfund Capital Advisors at the next Super Crowd Hour webinar on October 18th at 1 Eastern. Woody will share the implications of reaching the $2 billion funding milestone in the regulation crowdfunding market. Register today at thesupercrowd.com. Want to learn from the world's great changemakers? Find your superpower. Subscribe to the Superpowers for Good newsletter at superpowersforgood.com. Make your strengths into superpowers that will change the world. Join the Super Crowd today. Superpowers4good.com.
Hi, I'm Julianne Meyer, the host of Own Your Wellness, and you can watch my show on Mondays and Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific on Achieve TV right here on E360 TV. Remember, there's more to health and wellness than broccoli and burpees.
Welcome back. We're going to talk to Greg now about his superpower. And in our last conversation, we only had a chance to touch on it. But Greg, you said your superpower is your ability to accomplish hard things. And that is a superpower we all want, right? And I wonder if we could start this discussion by having you share an example of some difficult thing that you accomplished by virtue of this superpower.
So throughout my life, I've had the opportunity to accomplish many big things. I graduate of West Point, graduate of Army Ranger School, have run 7 sub 3 hour marathons, including a 2:36.
Wow.
I got into MIT, where I earned 2 master's degrees and a PhD in a relatively short period of time. I had a really successful Army career, which was very challenging, and rose all the way to 2-star general. I've been married for 40 years, have 3 terrific sons, a grandson. And so I've been able to do a lot of things, and I do have innate God-given talents, but a big part of this superpower is having a bipolar brain, which has pumped and injected and flooded my brain over the years with excess biochemicals, principally dopamine. And what that has done is taken whatever talents I have and amplified them. It's given me extra energy, drive, enthusiasm, creativity, problem-solving abilities, extra charged up personality that enables me to lead others and get along really well with people. And so I would say that has been my primary superpower, and I've had a biochemical advantage with my bipolar brain.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And part of what's fascinating about that is there are things, healthy things, that all of us can do to enhance our mood. And part of what you're talking about is that the chemicals gave you self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other ways to develop self-confidence. How would you, let's talk about this a little bit. How would you coach people to replicate as best they can in healthy ways that sense of ability, that self-confidence, the enthusiasm, all of those things that came together to allow you to accomplish great things? How would you encourage people to replicate that in healthy ways?
So the best way to explain that was with bipolar disorder, you have low-level mania, which is very performance enhancing, makes you feel great. But then you go up into high-level mania, which can become destructive and counterproductive. But then you fall into depression. And when you're in depression, it's the opposite of mania, and you feel terrible. You lose confidence. You're tired. You're indecisive. You don't want to be around people. So to answer that question, I go back to when I was in a period of depression, which I had many with my bipolar life. Here's the things that I would do to help lift me up. Number one, I would tell myself, hey, this is just a temporary condition. I'm really strong, confident, smart. I can do great things. And I would do positive self-talk for myself. I would try to exercise vigorously, like do, lots of push-ups and pull-ups and, lift weights, something to really rev myself up. Or I'd go out and I'd go on a really hard run and do some wind sprints or run up hills. And again, trying to get the chemicals in the blood really going in my brain. And then I'd go to spiritual things. And this is kind of an aggressive spiritual thing, but I over the years, I had memorized lots of Bible verses, and I focused on the really powerful ones that and there's, hundreds of them in the Bible that tell you, you can do this, trust in God, you can, you rely on God, you can accomplish anything, don't be fearful, be strong, be courageous. And so I had about a dozen of those verses memorized, and I would repeat them over and over and over in my head to lift my spirit up and make me feel more confident, more powerful, better, so I could, go do the things that I had to do. Those are some of the main ones that I would do, but I would try to hit, mind, body, spirit, to try to rev myself up and elevate myself to go back in there and do a better job.
Those are really profound insights. And as I hear what you're saying, it seems to me that those are all replicable, right? Those are all things that people in whatever situation can do, right? We can all do positive self-talk. We can all exercise more and more vigorously. We can all look for spiritual inspiration to guide us. And I think you'd probably agree that those that find themselves not believing in the divine could still find ways for finding inspirational messages, right? That others, profound thinkers, have thought that they could reflect on that would have a similar effect. Really, really important messaging. As you think about these three things that, trying to think about mind, body, and the spirit, how would you rank them in priority?
Oh, that is a great question. I would say they're all very important, but at different points in my life with different degrees of depression and challenge, some seem to lift me more than others. Like, for example, I think when I'm in an office type job, the physical stuff maybe elevates me more. It's more important because I'm in a more sedentary environment. When I was in combat during the attack on Baghdad, and we were, very active, very physical, on the go all the time, the spiritual stuff seemed to play a more important role. And what I would try to do is, find a quiet spot, a quiet place, and think and reflect and meditate on these spiritual passages that gave me strength. So in that environment, I think it was the spiritual. And then, and I guess I would say the positive self-talk, that's probably maybe the third out of the 1, 2, 3, but it's still very important, and it applies to every situation. Because if you talk to yourself and you talk yourself up, at least for me, it tends to give me confidence and courage and motivation.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Those are such profound insights. Well, Gregg, we've just been thrilled to have you here today and have a chance to catch up. Before we wrap up, I wonder if you would just take a minute and tell people, remind people that the title of your book, I think it's Bipolar General, and tell people where they can find it.
So the title of the book is Bipolar General, My Forever War with Mental Illness. It can be found wherever books are sold. It's, Amazon is a great place to go. It's published by the Naval Institute Press, can be found at Barnes and Noble and other places. And, it's a story of my life, my experience, my crisis, recovery from bipolar disorder. But people ask, why do you call it My Forever War? And it's because once you have bipolar disorder, you always have it. There is no cure. So the key to being happy, healthy, successful is to manage it, and like you would manage a chronic illness. It's the same type of thing. Living a healthy lifestyle, taking medication, seeing a therapist, the 5 Ps, and having that stable, healthy life. So yeah, it's a great book. I would recommend it for anybody. I think it will save lives of loved ones and possibly even your own.
Well, Gregg, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your time. Now, one of the things that you do regularly is the speaking circuit. So if people are interested in hiring you to come speak to a group, how do they reach you? And what's the best way to approach that?
Great question. First off, you can get a hold of me on my website, and it's got most of my papers, articles, interviews, podcasts, etc. And my website is www.generalgreggmartin.com. And that's Gregg is with 2 G's on the end. The other way, I've actually got bipolargeneral.com is another access to my website. And feel free to send me an email directly, greggmartin79@gmail.com. And that's GREGGMARTIN. But feel free to send me an email, if you want to develop a conversation or questions, comments, or just, want to talk. I'd be happy to do that as well.
Fantastic. Gregg, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We wish you every success in your work, helping other people better face their challenges with mental health.
Thanks, Devin. I really appreciate it. And I love the work that you're doing because you're helping people, you're saving lives, you're really making a difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, let's do some good.